Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
I'm Peter, also known as Mono Whiteboarder.
You're back from your, exile to law school. How's that going?
I've been given temporary reprieve. We have a recess, but school's going good.
We're like meeting, between there's glass between us and just like a tiny microphone.
Yeah.
There's a guard on your side of the glass.
I've been hanging in there. It's definitely tiring. Definitely eats up a lot of time. So I've been touching Magic enough to remember the ropes and remember how everything works.
Great. I'm hoping that this is going to be a good episode for you because I know you're a fan of weird old kooky cards. How about some new old weird kooky cards?
Okay.
I've got a project where I'm kind of reworking revised edition, 3rd edition Magic. So I wanted to set people up for how I got to where I got to the place that I'm at, and then go through all the different rules that I've come up with to kind of remix Magic a little bit, change around Magic's rules, try to keep the revisedness in revised, and then maybe brainstorm a little bit along the way.
Maybe that's a good place to start is what is the revisedness of revised, especially for newer Magic players might not even know what revised is.
Yeah, so revised 3rd edition, that's where I started playing Magic. I lived on the East Coast at the time, and pretty much Alpha and Beta and Unlimited didn't make it to the East Coast. In original revised, this was when they cut all the really powerful, valuable cards like Time Walk and Moxes and stuff like that, plus a couple other weirdos, and then infused the set with a bunch of extra cards from Arabian Nights and Antiquities. So it was the first core set that rotated any number of cards. There wasn't that much cycling, I'm guessing like 75% the same as Alpha. Core set wise, where did you start?
It would have been M14, right? I was like, Return to Ravnica, Innistrad had like just finished, and Return to Ravnica was around the corner, so I think it was M14 or M15. But I had like touched extremely old cards because my brothers before me played. So like I had this vague recollection of like these weirdo cards from the past.
Yeah.
But my core set is very established, and like they kind of knew this is the kind of gas that keeps the engine running. If you can have this general stuff, then you can play Magic.
When you started playing, did you have an impression of like, would you rather play with the core set cards, or would you rather play with like the normal kind of expansion cards?
Oh, this brings me back a memory. So when I first started playing, it was just like, there's this kind of like, just you need to get a bunch of cards and every card is really cool for you. So I remember those deck builder toolkits that they would sell them in Walmart because they didn't have a game shop. So we'd like buy these deck builder toolkits and we'd smash things together. And I think those were like, I mean, now I look at them and I'm like, those are pretty much garbage, but they come with a bunch of lands and they have like, generic cards. I don't think they were seeded. There's no packs inside there, so there wasn't a whole lot of randomization inside of them. But it was this kind of like just generic jumping off point. So like as far as core sets for me, it was kind of this like foothold to get you into Magic so that you could have pieces to make things work together,
Oh, okay. So the deck builder toolkit is sort of the actual core set to you in a way. Like that's the way you actually got started. Yeah. Okay. I think they have that for Foundations as well. I remember looking at that box and it's like a pretty nice set of like 300-ish cards. Plenty of rares, cool cards to build around, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The core set I just remember being like a if I need a card that does something, I could kind of go and look toward the core set or get a fat pack in the core set, and you kind of get all this generic stuff so that you could blow up your friend's enchantment. Because at this point, it's so early, I don't really know what specific cards exist. Like it's very much just like I know the type of things I can do, and the core set has all of the things that I can do. Versus like Ravnica or Innistrad, especially in these block sets, if you aren't super aware, like you could buy Avacyn or like Dragon's Maze, which is a small set and very specific, and you buy a pack of Dragon's Maze and you're like, what the hell is that? I have one card I can use because all these cards are in multicolored pairs. I don't play.
Your main way to destroy an artifact might be like a 2-color card or something because it also does some other is it thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the core set's going to give you Shatter or whatever.
Exactly. It gives you this like this is what you look to, and like this is the minimum that is acceptable by Magic standards.
Yeah. So I guess if you were thinking like what is a core set in general, do you think like I guess Foundations kind of established like a pretty successful model for what a core set would be. Do
Mhm.
you have any other ideas of like what it should aspire to? Like what kinds of things that kind of set should mean?
When I think of a core set, I think of like a goblin or elf aggro deck. I think of like a
Yeah.
blue white control deck. It's like very much these like things to help you kind of decide what is the thing that speaks to me about playing Magic.
Yeah. I guess there's sort of a split to me in what we're talking about so far between like a core set, which is all truly generic cards that aren't
Mhm.
that don't even like look at each other that much versus like a foundation style core set where there's like 10 archetypes worth of stuff to do. There's like blue red spell slingers, there's green white cats, there's a lot of really specific synergy. I mean not heavy-handed but like synergy decks that are really resonant, I guess. Black white life gain.
You can still see the like remnants of a design skeleton in Foundations, where some of your older core sets, it really was just like here's kind of fundamental cards that you need access to.
Yeah, yeah.
I do remember like in the Return to Ravnica, what was it, Pro Tour, that the core set was kind of this like you could reach in. I think Elixir of Immortality may have been a core set card of like you can reach in and you can grab this mechanic that doesn't really fit anywhere else, but it's like just shuffle your graveyard into your library and you reach in and you just pull that out because like that's a
Mm,
generic effect that I need that none of the blocks that are currently in standard have a relevance to, or like if standard needed a Doomblade really bad, they could just print Doomblade into a core set, and there you go.
mm.
Now Standard has the Doomblade it so desperately needs. It was almost like an easy patch in Standard that didn't require any, large, big, overarching set ideas.
Hmm. This is a project that I've seen a lot of people take on. There's like a custom core set project that went on for a while that I remember. They're trying to like really nail what it should be, what it could be.
I wonder where that comes from a custom designer standpoint of like
Yeah,
why there is such a desire, because it is something you see a lot, and usually it is with people who have been playing Magic a long time, where they are trying to capture some like essence. We're around the
yeah,
Christmas season. They're trying to capture some like childhood Christmas magic, but for Magic, in a core set of like
yeah,
here, what is the fundamental essence, the core that you can't take away from Magic that will always be there no matter how hard you try. Kind of like an
yeah,
almost a
yeah.
proto Magic set.
Yeah, that essence that you're talking about. I think probably people who have been playing longer have more nostalgia for
Hmm.
core sets because they just haven't really mattered as
Hmm.
much in the time since, I guess. The core sets for a while for me were just like the worst Magic sets. Like they were just the ones that had nothing cool going on with them. I feel like Foundation somehow like broke through that and like had enough sweet stuff to do. Maybe it's the kind of soft archetypes, the like things to do for every color pair kind of guidance that Foundations had. Maybe it's just having enough cool rares like Thousand Year Storm is in Foundations. The Progenitus is in Foundations. They're allowing really sick cards to be in a set like that compared to when I think of like I don't know, 10th edition or something. I think of just like a lot of cards I don't feel like playing with.
Was it M10 or M11 that was like the direct? It must have been M11, right? That was right after the end of the seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th edition. And then you have
Hmm.
M11 that introduces. I felt like that one always had these cool. Tall Rand was like a cool card to me as a kid.
Hmm. Okay.
They had these rares that you could kind of latch onto as like, here's a little juice from the set. There was a
Yeah.
Garruk Planeswalker in one of them.
Yeah, I guess maybe they still were sick enough and I was just like already over it. Maybe I
Hmm.
just the old target for core sets of just like here's a product that will never be expensive that we could just always have in stock in the store. One funny thing that you said, oh, it must have gone 10th edition to Magic 2011. No, there's 10th edition and the Magic 2010. Those are two different
Right.
sets.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Because that makes a ton of sense.
They were 2 years apart, but yeah.
Okay.
Uh, the yearly core set was pretty rough. The old ones, like
Hmm.
sixth, seventh, eighth, like those were every other year. They were kind of generic. Well, it's not a big deal because they don't come out that often. But I think, yeah, when it was like a yearly, like a Madden kind of yearly numbered thing, that's maybe when it, to me, was at its like most, like, why are they bothering doing this? Like, give us cool sets instead of these yearly core sets.
You bring up the Madden comparison because I just recently picked up like, oh, I'm gonna like play Madden again.
Okay.
But obviously, I don't want to buy the newest Madden because I frankly don't care. So
Yeah.
I just, oh, in my library of games, I have Madden 2019, so I'll just play that one. Like,
Yeah.
how different can
Yeah.
it be? I think too, there's this important change that started to happen in Magic where like early core sets had the excitement of now I have access to cards. Like there was a limit on supply in
Yeah.
extremely early Magic. And so when you
Yeah.
get to Magic 2010, it's like no one is having trouble getting their hands on a naturalized. Everybody who's played for like a year or two can easily
Yeah.
get a hold of a naturalized. Now it's just for very, very new players.
Yeah. As Magic got bigger and the ability to
Mm-hmm.
access like bulk cards like has just gone up and up over time.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the pieces for me when I played like revised, I think it was definitely true. We had way more access to revised and fourth edition than we would have had to any of the supplemental sets like the Dark or Legends or Ice Age alliances, stuff like that. And so we actually got to know all the revised cards eventually, even without the internet. Like we saw most of them. I think at one point me or my friend bought like a book that just listed every magic card in it so that we could read that. I don't know.
The
Very nerdy, I guess,
well,
but
yeah,
we
and
loved
there
it.
was the old magazines where you could look up what the price of a card was. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is how much my Findhorn Elves is worth if I go to the card shop.
I think there were plenty of early cases of shops or comic stores or whatever that were only barely into Magic, like still selling cards for ridiculously high or ridiculously low amounts of money
Mhm.
because no one had a good standard for how that stuff worked. There's no rarity printed on the cards, so you didn't even know that. Now, I typically know most of a set's contents before I've opened a pack. If I'm talking about Avatar or something, I've read most of the cards through preview season, preview videos, whatever else before I open it. But part of the kind of mystery of opening a Ice Age booster pack was that you knew probably zero of the cards when you opened it. And kind of tackling a project like this, like, hey, let's make cards that feel like old cards. That's kind of important to me. And let's not make it so that all the cards are really known. Like, I guess one thing you could do is just buy all the cards that are in revised, shuffle them up, make a cube, and then play with that. There are plenty of old school cubes out there. But that's not really what a core set is to me. That's not really what revised is. Like it's not a noble thing where I'll map out all the strategies ahead of time and go into a draft know exactly what I'm going to do. It's a little more sealed, it's a little more maybe trading oriented, something like that.
There's almost this world that you see outside of just the actual draft itself. Of like,
Yeah.
there's the construction is not self-contained like in a sealed or a draft.
Hmm.
There's this outside world of like, oh, my friend has this card that I didn't know existed, but actually goes perfect in my deck, and they don't even want it because they only play red cards.
Yeah, that trading is like a thing that like I think trading is fun. I mean, sometimes stressful, especially if you're a kid, but like trading is just not that functional as an adult. Like it's just way easier for me to buy list all my valuable cards and then order the cards I actually want than it is to trade. Unless you have like a bunch of duels or something that's like easy trade fodder, it's hard to even like find someone who wants the opposite things that what you want.
Into like the pros and cons of a bartering system, but like there is just a
Yeah.
simplicity to like when everybody knows this card's worth $20 and this card's worth $10, like everyone
Yeah.
just sets that value. But in like a smaller, in
Yeah.
early Magic, when there's less knowledge and there's more short-term value in me having that good green card you have that you don't even really like and no one else really has a value for.
Yeah.
Suddenly my evaluation of that green card becomes a lot more important, and you kind of devalue it a little bit, so we can work out a deal that feels favorable to both of us.
Yeah. And if you think of the kind of original Richard Garfield model of like people will buy a starter deck, which is 60 cards, and then maybe a couple booster packs, and that's like their total investment
Card
in the
pool.
game.
Yeah.
Trading is much more useful because there are just so many easy upgrades you could do. Just trading, I'll trade all my green cards for all your blue cards, and then like both our decks will get radically better. It's sort of in this zone between like actual limited where you have like a really strict enforced and time limited pool of cards. I'm going to draft these cards, play 3 matches with them, and then put them away. It's in between that and actual standard, which is like if you want to go to a standard tournament, you better have 4 of the cards that are really relevant in your deck, or else why are you even showing up? Like you're just at such a disadvantage. There's this sort of like proto constructed or like half sealed, half constructed sort of thing to early Magic, or that was crucial to early Magic for me. If you just use regular cards, if you just give people regular Magic cards that already exist, they already know how good they are. So I think part of the conclusion I got to with this revised thing was that I couldn't just reuse existing revised cards. I had to change cards. So I guess the next parameter is, well, what do you aim for? Do we want to basically modernize those cards? Do we want to take the Knowledge Hero, which is a 1/1 with banding? Do we want to make that like better? Like that could be a 2/1 these days, If we have like Ancestral Recall, 1 mana for draw 3 cards, let's just make that 4 mana. You could balance these cards. You could just make them more modern. You could make them more playable. And I think I've seen people do that, reassign cards to different colors, bring in a couple cards from other sets. But I don't know that modernization is the thing that I was after.
Because when you just take, we have all this modern knowledge and put
Yeah.
it back onto the thing, I think what it sounds like you're trying to go for is, and once again, another thing that a lot of people, when they've been playing Magic, honestly, I would say when people have been playing Magic probably 10 years is like a good mark. When they start to feel like the game is solved in a way, of they kind of understand the big premises of the game
Yeah.
and can just apply that. And a lot of times these people move away from constructed and they start to play a lot of limited because each set is kind of its new little thing to explore. But
Yeah.
even then, you apply the same rules to it. And it kind of looks like you're trying to create a core set now that isn't solved, that you can't just take your outside knowledge of what Magic is and apply it directly to it, where, something like
Yeah.
bumping up Ancestral Recall and saying, well, now it's 4 mana and a sorcery, it is just applying the solved principles of Magic right onto this core set project that you're working on, which is what you don't want to do.
Yeah. The common wisdom on like alpha through maybe up to Tempest is that the spells are just better than the creatures, and that like a lot of the creatures are not worth playing, whatever else. I think another big piece of all of that is like if the creatures are bad, that actually might let you play a long, weird game.
Yeah.
There was kind of an evolution in draft design where for a while, like creatures were getting better, but then we were still having board stalls because there were just a lot of creatures and removal was kind of bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think of Theros was like a zone where that was, that maybe 10-ish years ago, that was true. And now we're like games are super tempo oriented and aggression is usually quite good, but there's also these really greedy strategies that you can shoot for. And it's like, you have to get on the board in a lot of formats. You have to have creatures, or at least like really good removal in order to stay alive early. Because there are
Mm-hmm.
very solid, either aggressive or tempo-y decks. And so like, if you just want to dirtle around and like play your expensive cards, you're just going to lose before that happens. And that was pretty unlikely to happen back in the day because all the early creatures were kind of bad.
Well, and I think you even hit on something that like I've struggled with adjusting to with modern Magic, having like played a lot of limited when I was younger, then took
Yeah.
a long gap and I'm kind of trying to get back in the rhythm of limited.
Yeah.
The 2/2 with lifelink you could put down and you would be fine, and like eventually everyone's going to be in top deck mode is just like so irrevocably bad because you played a 2/2 with lifelink and your opponent's about to play a 3 mana card that
Mm.
attacks and gets rid of your 2/2 with lifelink, and
Mm.
now you better come back with an even stronger 3 mana card or else they're going to be on the offensive the entire time. There is
Yeah.
no like, yes, this 5 mana creature is bad, but it will actually prevent all of your creatures from attacking me so that I can play my 7 mana sorcery
Mm.
spell or whatever.
Yeah. It's a little hard to get like a one card stabilize going.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
And that happens to me in a lot of limited games.
The thing that I'm aiming for, and maybe it's kind of an experiment that way, is to not actually try to update creature power level by that much, to not boost revised creatures much stronger than they were at the time. And then sort of think about the other issues with the format and try to address some of them, but also just kind of allow the creatures to be what they are. Like, we're not trying to speed up the game. We're not trying to make it really interactive, because part of it is, in order to make it like a modern set, you'd have to change everything about it. And that might kind of lose some of the old feeling. And instead, maybe what we want is like the feeling of those extremely old cards that are clunky, that aren't that aggressive, that take the games take a long time. You just get to wallow in that a little bit. You get to adjust to that and see how that changes the power level of other cards if a lot of the creatures are pretty weak.
It's almost like reverse
Good.
power creeping in a way of,
Yeah.
we're gonna keep all the creatures. We're gonna make the board itself feel like 1993, but maybe the
Yeah.
cards in your hand are a little bit different to make the
Yeah.
the game a little bit more interesting. So you're not just staring at each other the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think another piece that was really makes revised and other early sets hard to draft is that there is a ton of auras. There's a bunch of circle protections, wards. Probably like half of White's cards are eaten up by cards that you can't play. It'd be cool if you could play them. If you could play Lance to give a creature first strike or Holy Strength or whatever else. But you don't want to have a bad creature, put a bad card on top of it, and have just like a removal spell take care of both at once. That's just like setting yourself up to fail. So another piece that I was trying to keep in mind is like, what can we do in terms of making white work, I guess, unlimited, and to some extent blue as well. Blue is also hurting quite a bit in terms of actual creatures to play at all, even bad creatures.
Is there like in revised in alpha there was this like strategy of I'm just going to play all my Benelish heroes.
Hmm.
So I'll have 20 Benelish heroes and I'll play all
Yeah.
those. That's the white creature. Instead of now in modern Magic, it's like there's a 1-drop white creature, there's a 2-drop white creature, there's a 4-drop.
Yeah.
And there's multiple creatures in each spot on the curve across the board that kind of do
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
So how are
That
you
was
kind of tackling that?
before the DCI, before the four of rule.
Hmm.
People could play a lot of the same card. I think you were telling me about the legend of the Benalish hero general who just
Yeah.
had their 20 banding creatures and could reconfigure damage as they see fit. Banding maybe is especially good for that. And there was Playgrass, which is the first of the cards that like just counted the number of other ones on the battlefield. So maybe those two were especially good at what you're talking about. If like,
Hmm.
I'm just going to trade for as many of this one card as I can. And once I do that, I will have a cool deck. I think there's probably room to have one or two more of those in a set, but I don't know that you could have. I don't know that you could be good enough at design to have like 20 different cards, all of which are great if you just stock up on a million of this common.
Hmm.
Maybe that's possible. I don't know. Maybe it is a thing you could do.
Hmm.
The other piece about early revised and all that kind of stuff is that there's ludicrously little card draw. Like even in blue, we kind of think of like Ancestral Recall as like, or and Brainstorm, I guess is the other one, as these two huge rares that could draw a gajillion cards. But outside of that, blue doesn't draw any cards. It doesn't have like a divination, like a real classic, like just grip two cards kind of effect. And all the other cards also kind of struggle from the same thing. So that's another kind of piece going in of kind of like structural things that you'd notice right away playing with revised. The bad creatures, especially in blue and white, the sort of like unplayability of a bunch of these like booster auras and stuff like that. And then the inability to get any kind of card flow, like there's nothing even close to like scrying or surveilling in the set.
What is
Um,
the like level of drawback that you're dealing with when on creatures as well? Like, you know, part
hmm,
of what made early creatures so bad wasn't just that they are a small size with no enter
hmm,
the battlefield abilities,
yeah.
but they also like a lot of them came with harsh negative side effects. To get your
Yeah.
4 mana 2/2 flyer, you had to like take 2 damage every time it became tapped or something.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you trying to retain that, or are you just getting rid of it together?
I'm closer to retaining it than I am to cutting it, I guess
Oh
is the
wow.
short
Okay.
version.
Hmm.
Because I feel like the kind of roughness or the drawbackness is maybe something that some people remember fondly, or
Hmm.
Definitely has the aura of some cards of like Lord of the Pit, where you had to sacrifice a creature every turn, or Force of Nature, which is a giant green creature that you have to pay a bunch of green mana every turn to keep it around. Like nowadays, could you make a 6 mana 8/8 that you just cast? Yeah, you could. But instead, how about a 6 mana 8/8 that you have to pay 4 mana every turn to keep it around? Like there just isn't a creature nearly that big, so it's kind of like you know what? I'll pay that mana. It's cool enough to get this creature here that I'll pay for it.
It's like, to me at least, you are really trying to keep the creatures as like your source material.
Hmm.
This is the part of this tablet that I want to retain unchanged in my translation of it. Basically, this is what
Yeah.
it has to be kept as accurate as possible to the source material. And so maybe that gives you space in other areas like the lands or auras or instants and sorceries. That's where you can make the changes to make the
Yeah.
set feel a little bit more playable.
Yeah. The more memorable or notable a card is, the less inclined I am to change it.
Hmm. Hmm.
There is a temptation to change Ancestral Recall to make it weaker or make it way worse, or like Black Lotus or something like that. But if you do too much of that, or maybe this isn't true, but I felt like if I did too much of that, if I just completely remade how Moxes work, like instead of adding mana, they buff creatures. You could do that to like remove this explosive element from the game, but were people maybe looking forward to playing with a Mox, playing with a Mox not in Power Cube, playing with a Mox just with their crappy like 3 mana 2/2,
Have to make a decision of when you tell someone, "Hey, I'm reconstructing revised and I want you
Yeah,
to come play it with me." What
yeah,
are the expectations inherent to I'm reconstructing
yeah,
revised? What
yeah,
makes it revised? And some of the powerful cards are what people are going to have an expectation of.
yeah,
That'd be so cool. I have never cast a Mox before outside of maybe Vintage Cube. I've never cast
yeah.
Ancestral Recall. Targeting my opponent, that's a mill spell.
Moxes and such weren't in Revise, so it's already kind of anachronistic to put them in there. But I feel like it's still the feeling of like, oh, I'm going to open a rare that is not high on like obvious power. Like it's not that 8/8 for 6 mana, but it's something that we kind of know is powerful now. And it's like, oh, I get to actually use this. And maybe it's intended environment if you have one Mox in your entire deck, in your entire collection. Or the assumption in terms of what people will get is I'm going to print out a bunch of these cards. I'm going to kind of collate the cards so there's a certain number of rares, uncommons, commons, artifacts, cool lands, all that kind of stuff in a starter deck. So a starter deck is 60 cards, around a third basic land, so you get a couple of each basic land, and then you've just got a mixture of other cards. This is not a powerful deck. This is a bad deck, in fact. But that's your starting point. That's your little starter collection. And that's what people are going to be handed. And then the idea that I have in this project is that you then just keep those cards. Like I'm just giving you those cards. You keep them forever. You can trade them. You can give them away. You can do whatever you want with them.
Is the vision that this is something that's like, oh, it's an alternate option that we have at a board game night? Is it something that we're trying to get together on a weekly
Yeah.
basis to do? Are we meeting at the cabin twice a year and playing this? What's kind of
Yeah.
the vision?
A variety of that. Once I get the printing going, the printing should be pretty easy to do. I have to do a little manual collation, which doesn't sound super fun, but I'm willing to do it. And then part of it is like the feeling of this is a gift. This is something that I'm going to give to a lot of people. I'm going to be able to play with people with my own cards. I'm going to be able to trade with people, whatever else. And then, maybe we'll bust it out with a given friend group once in a while as people are excited about it or interested in it.
Element of like, you are playing your version of Richard Garfield amongst your friends of like, I'm making this. I don't know how popular it's going to be, but here you all
Yeah.
go. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you like it, and see what happens. And you
Yeah.
know, maybe it becomes a huge hit. Maybe it's something that you play every once in a while. You break it out, and somebody plays some sweet bomb that no one ever has knew was in their deck, and then everyone's wanting to
Hmm.
trade it
Hmm.
or whatever.
Yeah. And so from there, remember, I don't really want it to be just like regular Magic. Although I am nostalgic specifically for revised cards, I know my brother is too if he's listening to this. Like that's not necessarily that nostalgic to people, and these cards might not appear to be that interesting. I don't want the feeling that there are people who know these cards so well that they're going to open it and immediately categorize every card in their starter deck and like be done figuring out, this thing.
Mm.
I want it to also be weird. I want to also capture this feeling of like, I don't totally know how this game works. I don't totally know all the rules or remember all the rules. So the other half of this for me is that I'm actually changing around a bunch of magic rules. I have a sort of vision of like an ARG sort of thing where this was some abandoned internal project that someone, is finding some documentation for. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do in terms of spelling out all the rules. I would like it to be possible for people to enter the Garfield zone of having to simply discuss amongst ourselves what a rules interaction should be,
Yes,
which is maybe frustrating for some players, but maybe is part of the vision.
a good plan. We can try and we can do our best to practice as Richard Garfield originally thought would happen when he developed the game. Of if there was a disagreement, two players would just cordially decide that the way that this was intended to work was this was what Richard Garfield intended.
There we go. Part of that spirit is in my heart when I tackle a project like this. That
I think, given what Magic has become, it is one of the funniest original ideas behind the game. Is that like, oh, people just kind of decide how it works, and every game could be a different decision.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So some of these are ones that you've probably heard in other sources, like, oh, if we redid Magic, how would we change the rules? And one of those, I think, is a common one, which is consolidating instant and sorcery in some way. Instead of having instant and sorcery be separate things, they're separate card types. That's kind of awkward. They're flavorfully the same thing. Like whether I'm casting a lightning bolt at instant speed or some other lightning thing at sorcery speed, those are both casting a spell. Those are both spells. And what I've done is I call them spells, and then instant is a super type. So you will see instant spells or you will see spells. And if it's just spell, then you just cast it when you could cast a sorcery.
Straightforward. It kind of prevents all that. That's kind of the cleanup thing of modern Magic, has this
Yeah.
delineation, and now you get to just consolidate it a lot more efficiently. Yeah, I mean that
Great.
makes total sense to me. Is and then would there still be things that everything would say this targets a spell, right? There wouldn't be
Hmm.
this targets an instant spell. It'd be more like maybe very rarely, I guess, there are things that say this targets a non-legendary creature. Um,
Hmm.
but generally, you'd
A
be look,
non-instant spell. Hmm.
yeah.
Okay.
But generally, you'd be looking at like anarchist would say return target spell from your graveyard to your hand.
Sure, yeah. And that
Yeah,
would get an instant spell or a spell. I guess,
yeah.
there may be a little bit of design space sort of fuzzied, right? If we're trying to
Mhm.
say blue is about instants, red's about sorceries or whatever, which was true for a while. That might be harder to word than now. But we're not thinking 30 sets in the future. We're just thinking of a thing that is like kind of plausible for one set and maybe a couple more sets, because that's the spirit of alpha or revised.
God, time out, Tim. Time out. Headphones died a lot quicker than I expected them to.
All right, so you're back with your laptop mic. Apologies for any sort of garbling if we talk over each other, but I think it'll still be good. We're going retro. We've got low tech recording
The
going
real
right now.
spirit of revised, I want.
Yeah, yeah. They would have loved to in 1993 if you could bring them just Skype. They would lose their minds. So anyhow, there's one big repercussion to using the term spell for these cards, which affects mostly blue mages.
Okay.
If you say counter target spell, what are you allowed to target?
Oh no. What is a creature then? Is a creature not a spell in this theoretical rules rewording that you're doing? Creatures are summons? You bringing back summons?
That would be a cool idea. Maybe I should consider that. I just have them as creature now. I
Mhm.
have them as the kind of modern version. But currently, the way that I've got it is that counter spell only counters spells.
Okay.
So if it's not a spell, it can't counter it.
Mhm.
So it can't counter creatures. This changes around a lot of blue, if you can imagine. A lot of especially the famous cards. I would say maybe not all of the cards. Like you can do things with blue that are still fun that are not countering spells. And maybe blue would be more chill in people's minds. Like there would be less hate for blue if blue early on had evolved to be like, I can stop anything that's a spell, but I can't stop other stuff very easily.
Mhm.
Yeah. That is one kind of big repercussion to moving to that. I think the other piece that we're talking about here, we've got instant as this super type. That's not really how we use super types right now. Like, I guess legendary is maybe the closest to that, where legendary has some rules meaning that is like part of the partly flavor and partly like a power level thing. But what I'm maybe thinking is that we're opening up super types, or what we think of as super types, like a thing above type or a thing separate from normal type, like creature or spell or artifact or land. That super types, or whatever you want to call those, are available for replacing other common game functions. The other one that I've got here that you noticed before we started recording the show is cantrip. Cantrip in D&D is just a really basic spell, but cantrip in Magic has a pretty specific meaning, right?
Yeah, so can I take a guess is what a cantrip
Sure.
super type would? I get to draw a card whenever I cast my cantrip spell, along with any other effects that come with it.
Yeah. The way that I have this, I don't know if people will guess this as they play this for the first time, but in my mind, the way a cantrip spell works is that drawing a card is part of the resolution of the spell. So it's not a separate trigger. It's not like an ETB after you enter. If you have a cantrip creature, as that creature resolves, as it enters the battlefield, you'll draw a card. And the main place I've applied this to are auras. If you think of like a lance, which, is an aura, the enchanted creature gets first strike, that also draws a card.
Interestingly enough, a very modern Magic solution to the aura problem of losing so much card advantage is the drawing the card. How did you land on the decision to use the super type to fill in for rules text? Because now you're moving away from the reading the card explains the card idea.
Yeah.
Kind of you're taking advantage of existing Magic knowledge to kind of abbreviate all these cards.
The idea that I had was that I'm going to standardize this and use it all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I've got about 15 cantrips cards in the set. And I'm counting on it being common enough because of that people will get used to looking at that part of the card, the type line of the card. And then also it just makes the cards half as wordy. Like, we want these to look simple. Holy Strength, a creature gets +1/+2. Lance, creature gets first strike. Like, it lets the cards look really simple, feel really simple, as they should, but also have this other component to them. Oh, it's an aura that kind of stinks to get, you can get 2 for 1 playing with this card at all. We're going to make this a cantrip. And you kind of learn to expect that it'll be a cantrip.
It's kind of using the technology of mechanics and mechanical technology of modern Magic and keywords and flavor words and things like that to large swaths of the cards all have this same mechanic, and you can shorten the rules text.
Mm-hmm.
Revised doesn't have a ton of mechanics. I'm not sure if your set's going to have a ton of mechanics. So this kind of people have the mental space now to kind of retain cantrip equals draw.
Yeah. I guess anything that I have as a mechanic in this set would be things that I consider in this, separate universe to be evergreen.
Yeah.
So unlike a Foundations, which would have flashback or morbid or raid, I wouldn't use those kinds of mechanics, I don't think. I think this will have some pretty big repercussions for White's identity. White being sort of the weak color by far in a lot of these, environments.
There's cantrip on every kind of color. Is there a color pie still in this theoretical world?
Yeah, I would say that the cantrips are heavier in white, but they do appear in other colors. Yeah. Speaking of auras, so there's another kind of twist here. So we started talking about the spell type. All enchantments are auras. Every single thing that is an enchantment is an aura. And because of that, they all work differently than they used to. And then all spells that were auras are now written with sort of the text enchanting spell. So we've got another sort of super typey use. Should it be called a super type? I don't know. I'm a little uncomfortable with that term, but you would say enchanting spell if you meant to have something that used to be an aura. Auras are written, enchantment dash aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2. The way enchanting works is enchanting works just like a spell does, except its effect is indefinite and stays with the creature. For something like Holy Strength, which, enchanted creature gets +1/+2, instead of, saying enchanted creature, blah, 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 it says target creature gets +1/+2. Just like it was a combat trick, except that with that enchanting super type, that effect will last indefinitely until that effect is removed.
The target is then the same or different than the thing it's enchanting?
No, it's the creature that you targeted
Okay.
is the one that gets the buff and is the one that is enchanted.
Okay, right.
This is another thing where I'm kind of using the super type or whatever to make the cards look extra simple. I kind of feel that's sort of like in revised it says like enchant creature in the type line, which was kind of funny at the time if you think like it wasn't what's the card type? Enchant creature? Is that the card type? Like it was written kind of differently back in the day, but I want that feeling of simplicity where you look at what can it target? You can see pretty easily, and then you just kind of play that card. So I have this sort of grouping of, instant sorceries and enchantments are all the same type. They're all spell. And it's just instant just means you can cast it whenever you want. And enchanting just means that it has to target something, and whatever it targets, that effect stays around until the enchanting effect is removed.
Essentially everything that isn't a creature is a spell, and then there's like these modifications that you as the designer can put on these spells of like, okay, target creature gets there's a spell, target creature gets first strike in land.
Yeah.
And then I can add, okay, that's a little too weak, so I'm going to add enchanting now. So now that creature gets first strike until this is removed.
Yeah.
And that's still 2 weeks, so then I can add cantrip, and now it draws a card. It's kind of interesting because it adds complexity in the sense of there's words that you just need to know what they mean now, and they add a good fair chunk of rules text.
Yeah.
But they read very simply. I'm kind of laughing here at consecrate land is instant enchanting cantrip spell, which is
Hell yeah.
a funny type line.
Yeah, I want part of these to be fun to read too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
consecrate land. Yeah, instant enchanting cantrip spell. So you can cast this whenever you want. It targets a thing. When it resolves, you draw a card, and it's a spell. And all it does, what does it do?
Target land cannot be destroyed, which is I played a consecrate land in Commander before, the original, which
There you go.
is the exact same thing that the original plus you get to draw a card.
And there is a little more land destruction in Alpha Revised, whatever you want to call that, kind of early zone. So I want white to be super good at stopping that. Like, not only did you not strip mine me, also I got a card out of it. So yeah, we have this sort of enchanting concept. Artifacts are still artifacts. Well, I have messed with artifacts as well, but artifacts are not spells. They stay not spells. But the other kind of nice thing about pulling enchanting into the spell zone is that now we give a little bit more juice back to counterspell. So counterspell can stop instant sorceries and enchantments.
Yeah, basically you can get around blue by playing creatures.
Yeah.
Blue's weakness is creatures, which is its weakness
Yeah.
anyway, but it doesn't have a catch-all.
Yeah, yeah. So how are we feeling about that so far? We feel like this. Have we made Magic sufficiently weird while still retaining some juice?
Yeah, we definitely have some of that weird revised feeling going on. So this is like all of the changes made just to spells, instant sorceries, enchantments, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you might be able to guess how it works. Like if you read Holy Strength, this weird Holy Strength for the first time, target creature gets +2/+1. You'd have a chance of playing it correctly because you see enchanting in there. I know what enchantments are. I might guess it doesn't say instant on there. You have a chance of playing it correctly, but also maybe you need to read the little rules breakdown. I don't know why both of those are good to me. I don't know why.
Yeah, you've captured that feeling of when I don't know if you ran into this, but like we had a friend, and it turns out this is a pretty common thing, where like the tap and then a little force symbol means not you make a green mana, but you actually go into your library and you get a force and you put it onto the battlefield. Like you have the opportunity of like playgroups come together, and they've actually been playing Holy Strength slightly different, but when you read the rules, you're like, oh, that does make sense how to play it, but we've been doing it slightly differently. You could also, you had the opportunity here to really go full revised and have cantrip mean you draw a card at the beginning of the next upkeep. The very old school cantrip nature, but
yeah, that was the kind of like Ice Age or whatever, like Alliance's Mirage kind of cantrip. Yeah.
Probably correct to just do it when you cast the spell, though.
I have a suspicion that this makes white like kind of busted in what it can do in terms of like if you just put 10 lances and holy strengths in your deck and just have some creatures, like you're gonna beat the crap out of people, is my guess. But wouldn't that be glorious if finally auras worked in old magic? I don't know. We'll see.
And maybe, maybe you do the thing where you draw only your lances and you have a full armory in your hand, but no creatures. There's some fail cases.
All right. So the next thing, while we're kind of going with working with card types, all artifacts enter with charge counters, and all artifacts use charge counters.
What? Okay, hello Mirrodin.
So if you look at like what's a good basic example? So Howling Mine, I guess that's a card people would probably know. So Howling Mine, still 2 mana, but what it does now is it has 5 charge counters, and then you pay a charge counter and tap it. Each player draws a card. There aren't like persistent artifacts. They're all just sort of activated abilities.
Okay, and now all of these artifacts come with, I'm looking at Howling Mine here, and they come with a little symbol in the bottom that tells you, kind of like a Planeswalker symbol, or a Planeswalker loyalty counter. It's in the bottom corner, and it tells you how many charge counters.
Yeah. Part of the idea here is to allow for kind of more differentiation. This is something that people have talked about for a long time between enchantments and artifacts. And I've gone all the way deep in both directions. There are no kind of like static on the battlefield enchantments, and there are no artifacts that are just sit around and do a thing. So part of the idea here is that charge counters are now a thing that you can count on wanting to interact with. So there are a couple blue cards, white cards that care about recharging artifacts, or doing so is more valuable than it used to be. And then also it gives us a way to have powerful effects on artifacts that don't outvalue all the dumb creatures that are on the battlefield. I think an example, Disrupting Scepter is this old card that you could tap every turn to make someone discard a card. If you imagine if you can only do that 3 times, well, that's still a useful card, but it's not something that is just going to hang around for the rest of the game and do something for the rest of the game. The Hive, the first card to make creature tokens. This was a card that, back in the day, people really wanted the Hive because the ability to just make a 1/1 flyer every turn, even for a lot of mana, would beat a lot of decks on its own. So the Hive has 4 charges, so you can make 4 1/1s eventually. And maybe that number goes up or down, or maybe the costs get to change because of that. But it's a way to make sure that artifacts are not an unending source of power.
Applies to Moxen too, right? The Moxen come in, have charge counters. So you're retaining the power of like playing an extra land on your turn, essentially. But there is a limit to how much mana that is going to produce. They are different than a land. They aren't just strictly better than a land.
Yeah, you get kind of the vibe there. So this is a way to like still have the feeling of turn 2 Mox 4-drop, something really devastating, but without, feeling like a strictly better land, I guess. It's still quite powerful, though.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you get a Mox for 2 turns. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So there's a second half to this of having charge counters on artifacts. Artifacts can now be damaged, and if they do, they lose charges.
Can I attack them?
You can't attack them, or at least there's not a normal way to do that. I'm sure there's some weird way to do that. But yeah, Lightning Bolt when it says any target that now encompasses artifacts.
So now there is do you bolt your Mox? Bolt the bird is dead. Now it's
bolt the Mox.
Yeah, bolt the Mox. Always bolt the Mox. Are the rules for, I should have asked this forever ago, are the rules for this going to be 1993 Magic rules, or are they going to be updated so it's more?
It's a good question. I don't know that I have a complete answer for that.
Okay. It's a work in progress.
Like I'm using the creature type instead of summon, so it's got to be somewhat newer.
Right. And then
is Mana Burn in here? I don't know.
Are we using the stack? Like there's tons of things.
My tendency there is to use the stack because people are used to the stack.
Right.
The stack wouldn't have come in for another 5 years or something with 6th edition. So technically you wouldn't use the stack. You'd have to know about batches. You'd have to know the difference between interrupt or whatever. But I want fewer card types. I don't want counterspell to be a interrupt sorcery. Though I guess you could do that. People would laugh at that, but I don't feel like doing that personally.
There's a cost benefit analysis of like people love this thing and we want them to have it, but also interrupts. The novelty wears off very quickly. The same might be true of Mana Burn. I'm not totally sure if the novelty of mana burn wears off very quickly, or if people like the idea of it existing, but it just doesn't actually come up that often.
Yeah, it doesn't open up a ton of space to have mana burn around, and it does. I guess people can just do it or not do it, and it won't affect the cards themselves. So
yeah, I think the famous story is Mark Rosewater. They played mana burn for like mana burn rules for a whole day or 2 days, and it never actually came up in a game meaningfully.
Yeah.
And so then that's when they decided to scrap it finally.
So those are our big type changes. Merging instant sorcery, having enchantment kind of tag along, and then artifacts being these somewhat more tangible, somewhat more temporary things. But there are a bunch of other little random things that I got in here. We can maybe go through those too. I think it's also maybe worth noting along the way that because this is revised, another tool that I have at my disposal is including cards from Arabian Nights and Antiquities, and that allows you to really bring up the rear in terms of white having more than 2 creatures a common, and a couple more answers to artifacts, a couple more fun ways to use artifacts from Antiquities.
Having the additional sets, it lets you flesh out the actual cards that you're playing with a little bit more.
And you get to bring in some more goofball cards like Shazarad and cards like that.
Yeah.
That weren't in revised.
God, there is just there's a joy to just scrolling through and seeing these just outrageous cards. The one that caught my attention was Illusory Mask, which is famous for being basically unintelligible in actual Magic. And here we have something trying to do Illusory Mask, but in a way that's like somewhat functional, where if you read the cards, you could guess at what it was. This one, what it's doing. You can play it and it'll do the thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those, why would you want to do this thing? But it can do the thing.
You want there to still be a lot of flashy cards.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I got another thing I've added to the set, which I think will hopefully add to the weirdness, which is castable lands. So these are lands that are better than normal lands, but you have to pay mana for them.
Yeah, I think I saw one of these because I used to love playing this card, was Island Sanctuary. And yeah, I saw that. I was like, what in the world is going on with this land with a mana cost in the top right-hand corner? It looks as weird as you would think it does.
So Island Sanctuary is 3 and a white for a land island, taps to add a blue, and then it has basically the Island Sanctuary text. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons to do this for me was because I wanted to get all enchantments to be auras, basically, or all enchantments to be targeted. And there were a bunch that you could not do that for. I guess you could do it. You could just say target island has blah, 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 blah. But I felt it may be more fun, maybe interesting if colors had sort of the pseudo ramp attached to the, available to them. Like this Island Sanctuary does put you up a mana. There's another one, Farmstead, which costs triple white, taps for a white, is a plains, and also taps to gain a life instead of adding a mana.
So what this is kind of retaining is all these old lands that basically were 100% utility lands. They didn't tap for mana or anything.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think everything taps
that's
for
good.
mana.
I don't think you should include lands that don't tap for mana.
Yeah. There was the legend cycle of, I think that's what you're talking about, where it's like Adventurers Guildhouse doesn't tap for mana and just says all your green legends gain bands with other legends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just so there's sort of an enchantment that costs no mana.
Yeah.
And costs your land drop. The other piece is if you're looking at Castle or Island Sanctuary or whatever for the first time, does this count as your land drop? What would your guess be?
I guess, I would say no. I think you should get your free land drop for the turn, and this one isn't free because you're spending mana to do it.
Alrighty.
Am I right or wrong?
That's where I'm leaning right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think it's kind of cool to just strip away enchantments totally and instead have these because I love the old utility lands, and there were all these enchant lands. Like Farmstead was an enchant land. Kind of getting rid of that and instead just you can get your utility out of this land and then you still kind of get back some of what you paid for it is pretty nice.
Yeah, you use this for mana for a couple turns, and then for the rest of the game, you get to use it to just gain some life every turn.
Mm-hmm. It almost makes me wonder if you can apply this to actual Magic in some way. That feels better because there's a very clear number of like once I tap this 3 times, I've gotten my mana back out of it.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it interesting, it's a little different thing. And there's also this benefit of like if I cast Farmstead on turn 3, on turn 4 I get to have 5 mana available to me. Even though I took that turn off, I still get this little boost.
Another thing that this ties into this, and also kind of the next point that I've got, is in early Magic, there were, like we were talking about this, the upkeep step, and then during the upkeep step, you would pay for things. Like you would pay for, your Lord of the Pit, where you had to sack a creature every turn or he hit you. Kind of using kind of ward style templating, where you'd say like ward dash discard a card. If you want to pay this ward, you have to pay this cost. Upkeep is now phrased the same way. Upkeep dash blah 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 blah. One of the examples relating to our last one is a black land that I've got, Cursed Land, which is a black mana for a swamp. So if you're casting a land, that's more than you get more lands than you normally would. It has upkeep, pay 1 life. So this is a ramp spell that is going to ding a life from you as long as you wish to keep it around.
That's kind of cool. That's pretty cool tech.
How do you feel about upkeep in general? Is upkeep too old man? Should it be deleted?
I think if you don't have upkeep in revised, it'll feel weird because upkeep was this. Somebody in the Discord asked a question about like, why is upkeep before the draw step? And I was basically like, well, when there were upkeep triggers, there was a tension. Do I want to tap my mana to keep my creature around, or do I want to draw and hope I get something better? Especially in a world where games are more simple, you're not drawing as many cards, so you're in top deck mode a lot more. Having that tension on your draw step and also giving you a reason to not cast spells and you actually kind of build cards back up in your hand. I think all of that has some relevance in it. Oh my god, I just noticed you have Last Strike in here.
Oh, you noticed it.
I mean, I now I'm actually in the file kind of scrolling through and I'm just seeing how goofy this set. Like we've been very serious for I think like 45 minutes and now we're going to just keep hitting more and more goofiness, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. So Scathed Zombies, which was a 2 and a black for a 2/2 zombie, no text, so just kind of a bad creature.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get a 2-drop into black, so it's now a 2 mana 3/2, which is insane in revised.
Yeah,
but it has Last Strike, which is just a hilarious penalty. Just Last Strike. If you've not played with Last Strike, there are only a couple Last Strike cards. Last Strike is bad.
Yeah, this is effectively a 1 toughness creature. Because if it fights a 2/2, it's dying.
Yeah. Other things have first strike against it. Yeah.
Right.
Sort of. Yeah, Last Strike. That was like a unstable, maybe, is where they put Last Strike. I can't remember exactly where, but yeah. And in this case, I'm actually merciful enough to spell out exactly what Last Strike does. I don't make people guess what it does. I got the reminder text in there.
Yeah, this also reminds me I should look for what you did with Regenerate and Dredge Skeletons, right?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you included skeletons. Oh, here we go. We got Dredge Skeletons is the 1 black 1/1 skeleton creature. And then you've changed the ability on it. It doesn't have Regenerate anymore. Whenever another creature dies, you return this from your graveyard to your hand. That's a pretty cool skeleton, if you ask me.
Okay, I passed the skeleton check.
Yeah, you pass it. I love a skeleton that returns to hand, a la Sanitarium Skeleton. This is maybe even better because it's a free trigger. As long as you remember to do it.
Yeah, you can't just do it on command all the time, like if you have a sack outlet. But yep, when things die, they turn into bones, and those bones, Dredge Skeletons.
Dredge Skeletons. Welcome to the Skeleton Army. Your opponent should have said "rest in peace" when they killed your creature. Now they're in the Skeleton War.
Yeah.
I think we have been kind of skirting around a big piece of rules that we haven't touched yet, Tim. And maybe we're doing that because like there's some controversy to it. We don't want Magic can't be gambling, and it is like legally distinct from gambling. But we haven't talked. We haven't talked about Ante yet.
Oh, okay. You want to do Ante?
Yeah, I feel
there is more Ante in my version of Revised than the original Revised.
Okay. I noticed like Ante seems like mechanically pretty prominent, and that's why it came up. I'm just noticing scrolling There's a couple cards that relevantly anti something on the battlefield.
Yeah. So, like an example of something that gained ante that didn't have ante before, Mahamoti Jin, when it enters, first you draw 3 cards, then ante all but 3 cards from your hand. Ante, if you've never played with ante was a thing where at the beginning of the game, if you played with ante, you would each flip over the top card of your deck, or you draw your 7 cards, then flip over the top card of your deck. And then that's basically the stakes of this game. Whoever won that game won that card. This was more common in like games back in the day, like marbles. You'd keep some of the marbles that you won from your friend. Ante, universally a pretty despised mechanic. However, the reason that I'm further in on ante is first for the sickos. If you want to play for ante, please go ahead and do so.
Absolutely.
And then second, one of the most core experiences to early Magic for me was learning to say, when you played with someone, the beginning of the game, no ante, no ante. And then you would proceed. I said that probably 100 times. And if I never got to say that playing this version of Revised, I feel like it would not be the same feel.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of compromise that I've got in here, feel free to say that. Feel free to say no ante, no ante. And I hope that most people will say that because that would be true to life. But if you want to be a sicko and you want to gamble, feel free to do that. If you don't want to play for ante effectively works like exile. Things that would have exiled instead ante in terms of rules text on these cards.
Are there cards that are like, you still have that game experience of if you're playing for ante, cards have like, oh, you can just concede right now and take your cards back, or I get to do this crazy effect. I would imagine that if the goal is people aren't playing for ante, then you're taking those cards completely out of it.
If you are not playing for ante, you can still play with cards that say ante on them. Mm-hmm. And then they just work like exile.
Exile, yeah, okay. But there's none of those like concede now and take your ante cards back, or I get to do something crazy.
Yeah, you still have that option if you are playing for ante and something devastating related to ante is about to happen. Mm-hmm. A card that I have in here that I think would fit this play pattern, we decide to play for ante, and then I put Demonic Attorney on the stack, and you read this card, and it says target player antes the top card of his or her library. You could decide, well, Tim's already beating me, so rather than ante another card, I will scoop before Demonic Attorney resolves. You can still do that, but scooping in response would only be relevant in an ante game. It would not be relevant in a non-ante game. You know, these ante cards, they swing kind of wildly how good they are based on whether or not you're playing for ante. And that's maybe part of the sicko black player with all the ante cards mindset, or at least that's what it is in my mind.
And all this ante talk, I had to go double check. And for those of you concerned, yes, Jeweled Bird is in the list and replaces your ante cards.
Yeah. Jeweled Bird. Shuffle your cards in ante into your library. Ante Jeweled Bird, then draw a card.
And you only get to do it once. There's only one charge counter on that.
Yeah. So relevantly, something that only has one charge counter also sort of only has 1 health. So if you can deal 1 damage to an artifact, you can get the Jewel Bird out of there.
Bolting the Bird, relevant again.
Oh, there you go. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, that's where I've ended up with ante. Mm-hmm. I think the word ante being on cards in Revised is kind of clutch to me.
Yep.
And I think I've gotten to a pretty good spot. The individual bounce of individual cards, takes time to hammer out. But I like the feeling of using ante. And I use ante in one other way. So if you think of like Ancestral Recall, we already talked about a lot, a heinously powerful card. I didn't want to take away the opportunity to cast Ancestral Recall. But what Ancestral Recall has a little bit of extra text on it now. It's still 1 mana, still an instant spell. Target player draws 3 cards, just like you'd expect with Ancestral Recall. It also says anti-Ancestral Recall.
Cool. So the idea now is not only does one person get to cast Ancestral Recall, but hopefully many people will get to cast Ancestral Recall if it gets passed around or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're playing for ante.
So if you say, hey, let's play for ante because I opened an Ancestral Recall, you're now also risking an extremely nice card. And if you're not playing for ante, you're just sort of playing with regular Ancestral Recall. It exiles itself, but who cares?
Yeah.
Time Walk has that treatment. There are a couple other cards that have that treatment of they ante themselves on resolution.
Tim, you said you had a one more weirdo you were saving for the end that you want to go over.
Yeah, and people might be guessing what that is. Do you have a guess of what it is?
I'm like, we're only going to go over one more weirdo, and there are so many weirdos. Take a second. Like, we haven't touched so much. My first thought is like, what are we doing with banding? Like, is
There you
banding?
go.
Okay.
I think banding is like Ante, where if there was no banding in the set, I had for a while this mechanic called bravery, which is a little Bushido-y,
Mm-hmm.
but it just didn't feel revised enough. Like the old heads would see a Banalish hero and see that it has bravery instead of banding, and they know, okay, this is the replacement for banding. But I wanted something related to banding, something with the word banding or something on cards. And I didn't necessarily need it to be fixed, sane banding. I just needed it to be a little bit different banding. So I've got
Mm-hmm.
a completely different mechanic called Warband that appears on cards. I am pretty happy with Warband, but to go a little bit more into banding, so banding on attacks, you form a band with some creatures, and then you kind of get to decide how the damage gets distributed. So the kind of typical thing is like attack with a band that has like your banding creatures and then one awful creature. And then when it gets blocked, when the band gets blocked, blocking a whole band feels really cool. Like that's like a cool idea. Like they're all kind of smushed together. They all get blocked or block as a whole. Um, but then when it gets blocked, you dump all the damage onto your bad creature and then you kill whatever blocked the band. So banding is like kind of good on attacks. Banding is heinously good on blocks because you get to do that, but with like full flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So with banding on blocks, if you have like two banding creatures in a wall, you block anything and then you exactly redistribute the damage so that nothing dies. So banding on blocks means like as long as you have two or three creatures, your creatures never die when blocking, which is not the gameplay I'm looking for, I guess. So why don't you read the text for Banalish Hero that I've got here, and maybe give your impression of what you're seeing after you read it.
Is white for a creature human soldier 1/1 with Warband. And the reminder text is you can add creatures to a warband as they are cast. And Banalish Hero gives an extra +1/+1 to a warband. So my understanding here is that basically I can like combine my creatures and put them together, and it like I guess like a kind of Morpho-like. I cast my Banalish Hero, and then I cast another Banalish Hero, and now it's like a 2/2. And then I cast another.
Like by morph you mean mutate or
Mutate, yes, like
yeah,
mutate,
yeah.
not like morph at all. Yeah, basically you can add one on top of the other. That's the impression that I'm kind of getting. That's how I would guess if I was playing this without the rule book, it would go.
Yeah. And that's pretty in line with what I've got for what a warband is.
Okay.
My objective was not to make a really clear mechanic. I think that if the replacement for banding was too straightforward, too sane, too magic-like, then it would no longer feel like banding. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just my declaration. So when I was designing when I was going through different provisions for what banding, bravery I had for a while, all these other things, maybe I just changed the banding rules, whatever else. My goal was to come up with a complicated mechanic that felt like a band of creatures all smushed together.
Hmm.
And if it took time to figure out how good it was or how to play it or what a good size band was or whatever else, or wasn't intuitive or required like finding the rules reference that someone printed out, that is actually a successful execution of a banding replacement. I don't know if you feel the same way, but yeah, when you have a creature with warband, you can now start basically turning other creatures into almost auras for that warband creature. You can kind of mush them together. They're sort of till death do us part. And they all have one combined power and toughness. They all attack or block together. And there are some mutate-like sections to the rules here. What happens if you use a bounce spell on a warband? I'm hoping that when people make the mutate connection like you did, they'll think, oh, a bounce spell will just return all of them at the same time. That's my intention.
Mm-hmm. So my first thought was like, does a lightning bolt kill my warband? So now there's a risk. Yes, I can make my Banalish Hero into a 3/3, but if they lightning bolt it, now I lose two creatures instead of one creature.
Potentially. I mean, if you warbanded I mean, lightning bolt, it would be tough with this hero specifically because the hero contributes an extra +1/+1. So it's pretty likely if you combine your grizzly bears with a Benlish hero and a warband, there'd be a 4/4. So a lightning bolt wouldn't dismantle it on its own.
I think there's some intuition and then some lack of intuition that perfectly encapsulates.
I think you had to intend to learn banding in the modern context in order to know how banding works, because we did not play banding consistently as kids whatsoever. I think I will have some version of rules reference for people to look up to. I don't think I'm going to write it like comp rule style, really thorough. I think there's some flexibility in kind of letting it be a little more, let me explain what I think the rules are. I think that's very revised-y. But I think that banding has to be a little confusing in order to meet its objective. I think the gameplay will be better. I like Warband. I think this sort of like mutate variant is cool, but we'll see if that's true or not.
It has some potential to be at least fun to try.
Alrighty, yeah. One of the other things I tried to do is I actually tried to stay true to your memory of the Benlish hero guy, which is if you just have a bunch of Benlish heroes, do they work great together? And these actually work just fine, because if you have two Benlish heroes, you put them in a warband together, you have a 4/4 for your 2 mana. So you have achieved something. And you can opt to not warband the third one to instead start a new separate band of creatures. So we've stayed true to your friend that had the 20 Benalish hero deck.
It's a dream come true. Yeah, I was pretty excited when I saw Benalish here. It's like warband, and some juice. So like, well, let's add some juice to it.
Yeah. Alrighty, there's more weird stuff in there, but I don't think we need to go deep into all of them. When I do get a finalized version, I will be posting that up so that people can look at those cards. In terms of takeaways here, what are the ones that jump out at you as like the most satisfying and maybe even like the least satisfying in terms of changes?
I think most satisfying, probably. I kind of really like the just consolidating instants and sorceries in the spell. I think it like is this delightfully simple way to change the type lines to look like old Magic cards. I think that's old Magic card type lines have a distinct look, and I think going with that, I think you should seriously look into like maybe doing something with creatures as well, to encapsulate that like weird looking creature type line to match the spells having these weird type lines.
You think there should be like one or two more super types that creatures can use?
Yeah, like like in original Magic, I think it was like summon thing, summon warrior or whatever.
Yeah,
or summon Benelish hero. Like it was always these like weird type lines that just reiterated the name of the creature. I think maybe there's something to do there that could be fun if you're trying to capture the feel of revised. The being able to deal damage to artifacts is pretty cool. As just like now there's this weird new gameplay addition added to the format in general. I think that's going to be at least an interest. It might be the first thing you change, but I think it's also got some interesting potential. Is like Magic doesn't do that. This is a completely new world that we're entering into where we're lightning bolting our artifacts.
Yeah.
What about you? Is there anything that you're specifically excited to try? Like the thing you most want to do?
That's a good question. Part of it's just this banding thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everyone wants...
There's only like 5 banding cards or something. There aren't many. So I don't know how many opportunities I will. I guess cleaning up everything around enchantments is something that I'm still kind of working through. Do I say like a naturalized as a destroy target enchantment? Like the card type is enchanting spell, so it never says the word enchantment. But will people just understand an enchanting effect is what I'd remove when I naturalize or whatever? Naturalize isn't in here, but just as an example. Yeah, I think really digging into that. And then I think the castable lands is another one that I'm a big fan of. I did kind of a first pass on the 8 or 10 of them that are in the set. I think I might work even harder to make sure that they're as cool as possible. Maybe bring in a couple more Arabian Nights lands to spice it up.
That was one note. I thought maybe the casting lands could use a little bit more juice just from a, I think maybe you want most people casting a land at some point. And I think maybe the way they're laid out now, I think you might have 1 or 2 people cast a land, but it's not going to be a common occurrence in play. And maybe you just want it a little bit more frequent. Not that everyone's curving out into their farmstead, but...
Yeah. I guess kind of related to that, a word on some of the things I didn't do. I changed a lot of stuff. Almost every kind of thing was touched in the set so far. One of the things I haven't touched at all are the duels, the original duels. They are obviously the best duels that have existed. They're, a couple $100 each now because they're popular in Command or whatever. But I think part of the effect of duels in Revised was you'd open them and be disappointed. Like these cards that are known to be powerful and desirable today, you'd be like, oh man, I got a land as my one of my rares. Why did I wanted like a cool dragon. So that's one of the pieces. Do you think the duels, I should do something with the duels, or how do you feel about that?
I'm not sure if there's any significance to the dual lands from a play pattern perspective either. Like playing a scrub land didn't feel that much different. Was there any unique play patterns that it developed? Not really.
Yeah.
The thing that I love is like I think it was the Mercadian fetch lands where they like entered tapped and then untapped if you got to search.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like the crappy lands that I love. I don't know. Maybe you just go totally off the walls and just pull out some of the like crappy fixing because like Magic has such a great history of terrible fixing lands is like a correction thing that I really love but don't really have a home. Were the storage lands? Those might have been legends. That was the other thing I thought. Storage lands are a good time.
There's some Fallen Empire ones at least.
Oh, okay, Fallen Empires, that makes sense. But I the problem is any change you make is gonna feel not revised like,
Yeah, maybe it's a grounding thing where you see those lands, they work as they used to. Oh, okay, finally, not something that's goofy.
Yeah. Maybe the beauty is in their simplicity, and the fact that they are untouched means there is something good. Badlands Bayou, they are just good cards, and even if they are unfair, in this kind of environment, they're not broken in the same way that they are now.
In the opposite sense, I also kind of changed something about Revised Character. I cut a lot of the color hosing.
Yeah.
I didn't remove Ante. I didn't remove Upkeep. But color hosing is the one thing that I decided to really cut down on.
Distinct goal of, like, the cards are playable. And you can tell that. Like, every card in this set, like, if you play it, you don't feel like the biggest dummy in the world. Like, there's you're not playing it as a joke, if that makes sense. You've found a reason to play any given card, and it can make some amount of sense.
I think color hosing does have some root, like if you're playing hey, let's shuffle up all our initial 60 cards and just play a big chaotic 5-player game where it takes 10 turns for people to cast their spells. There is some fun to being able to just say, I'm going to nuke all forests or destroy target blue creature. Like that, it becomes kind of useful in that environment to have, Elemental Blast, one of those cards. But I don't know. I guess I wanted room for more creatures. There weren't enough creatures. And then also, I didn't want people to feel like they had to sideboard to play correctly with this format. Yeah. So those are the things that I either didn't change or kind of omitted because I didn't feel like tackling it. So that's about it for this kind of remake of Revised. My wife likes when I call it Riley-vised. And it's something that I've been working on and off for a couple of years on, just like upgrading a couple cards, rethinking a couple cards, changing the way that I do something. Warband is relatively new in the last couple months, so it's something that I'll probably be spending some more time on before I get printed up. I got to make it all the crispiest, revised style white border cards that I can, which is going to involve some MSC template work. But yeah, that's kind of the project overall. What would your instinct be if you got one of these boxes and you were with some other people? Would you be trading? Would you be shuffling it up? What would you do?
My heart of hearts, I know that my go-to would always be to like try and moneyball the situation. So like the interesting thing when you're in like a contained environment is that like now the value isn't dictated by like these are $10, these are $25. It's like the value is dictated by like people just don't seem to be interested in XYZ thing for whatever reason. And so like if I could just like hoard all the like the chaff people want, make 5-for-1 trades kind of things, Just try and like, if I get all the crappy cards, is there something good here? I feel like that's the route I take. Is just try and hoard as much cardboard as possible.
You're trying to trade like your one rare for like 11 cards.
Yeah, and see,
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
hope that one of them, oh, actually, this is secretly an amazing card. Early on, while people aren't fully aware of like what the hell the format is. I don't know if that would even work, but I can tell that would be my instinct. I also like bad cards, so if people are like writing cards off, I'm like, oh, give me that.
Yeah, people's ability to curve out in this format, even with the stuff that I've added in, it's going to be kind of limited. So I think there is room to mess around and assemble weird combos and stuff like that. Alrighty, so that's about it for the main topic for the week. You got like 2 days left to enter in our design challenge for December, I guess. So we're giving you a little extra time for the holidays. December the Titans. Design a creature with an enters and attacks trigger. Juliet was asking this earlier. What's your favorite of the Titans? What's your favorite Titan?
I feel like this is probably pretty obvious, but Sun Titan is by far my favorite Magic card probably of all time.
Oh wow!
Yeah, like it's way up there as far as just like, and definitely one of my most played cards. I'd say of just like I've cast a lot of Sun Titans on my day. I've flickered a lot of Sun Titans. So yeah, that's my favorite Titan by a long shot.
What are the things you're trying to bring back with the Sun Titan?
What are the things I'm trying to bring back? Basic Plains has been brought back a lot, or any land type, like Banisher Priest, Fiend Hunters, things like Fiend Hunters probably brought back a handful of times.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get that value. Like, bring back, Sun Titan, get a Mentor of the Mink, and then just bring back 1/1s for the rest of the game. That's definitely.
Alrighty, sounds good. We got a couple bonus points on there too. Remember the Titans, your card features a reminder text, either because you're defining a new mechanic or something really novel that needs clarification. And then Titan, the card name begins with SN, which is like the chemical name for tin. That's due January 2nd. So you just got a couple days if you're listening to this live. We love getting as many submissions as possible. So even if you're submitting last minute, please jump on the Discord and do that. That'll be it for the podcast for the week. Like I said, jump on the Discord. That's where all the submissions are. That's where all the fun is. Probably in the new year, we're going to start getting Lorwyn spoilers again. And whenever there's spoilers, there's a lot of people digesting cards, looking at, we've never seen a card worded this way. We've never had a card that can do this, all that kind of fun stuff, speculating on what else is going to be in the set. So make sure to join in time for that. Thanks for coming on. It's been a while.
Yeah. I'm surviving. And then, before you know it, summer will be around, and I'll be on another podcast episode in between internships or externships or what I'm doing. So.
Semesters, yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Have you had any time to watch movies in your heavy studies?
So during finals week, it was after my civil procedure final, I rewarded myself by going to see The Shining in IMAX for its like 40th anniversary or something, and that was. Okay. Honestly, the thing that impressed me the most about wasn't the giant visual; it was the sound. I've only watched that movie at like a home entertainment center. And like if like I can't watch The Shining at home with my dog because my dog hates that movie because the like soundtrack to that movie is very intense with this like high pitched whining noise. And so hearing that in like a movie theater like IMAX surround system was pretty phenomenal. I've been kind of obsessing over sound in movies recently.
Oh, okay.
I went to see Wicked for Good, and for the first hour of that, movie, I was just like, God, this sounds really amazing. Which I guess is good. If it's a musical, it probably should sound good, but I thought it was exceptionally well mixed for the.
Awesome. Yeah, I've started noticing that in games now when a game sounds really good, like it actually pops out better to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alrighty, yeah, great rec. If you want to talk to either of us and reach out to us, Discord is the place to do that. And most of all, everyone, thank you for listening.